Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hack, and in today's video we're checking out the PTS patch notes for week 3 of the HARROWSTORM DLC. As usual, I'm doing my best to keep you updated on all the new changes here coming up soon for the Elder Scrolls Online. And just a heads up that I am disappointed, to say the least, with this recent release. We'll get into all of that, obviously, as we jump in right here. So patch 5.3.2 introduces Jester Festival for testing. Again, this is all live right now on the public test server. They have also implemented one fix for block and are still investigating situations where you may appear to be blocking but are not gaining any damage mitigation. They have new character copies. Also, I found this interesting. It says, please note that next week will be the final PTS patch for this update, since they need additional time to prep the final build. So what that means is we have this week's patch and then a final patch next week, and then that is it. Next week's changes are going live in February and March. So there are several dungeon changes that I'm just going to move past. I really want to get into the combat changes as well as item sets. So under combat and abilities, mostly bug fixes here, specifically regarding block. So they fixed an issue where jumping or entering water while activating block could cause your character to fail to gain the benefits. So I'm sure that is a bug. Apparently that has been fixed, but they didn't fix the big one yet. And of course that is blocking and bar swapping. They mentioned it briefly here at the bottom. Still investigating situations where you might appear to be blocking but are not gaining the damage mitigation. I know that's mainly been when you bar swap while trying to block at the same time. Now, in terms of other updates to combat and ability, you're not going to see very much here. Like I mentioned before, mostly just bug fixes. Bug fix for Path of Darkness, for Fungal Growth, for Werewolf, and that is it. Now, personally, I was hoping to see some more updates for the Necromancer class. In my previous video covering the Necromancer updates, I was super excited at the direction the developers have taken with that class. They're missing a few things. Specifically, the Magicomorph of Blast Bones needs a new effect, because that scaling effect based on the time that the skeleton is running, that no longer is going to work in many cases. And I was hoping to see something interesting here. Maybe a stun, maybe an AoE dot, maybe off balance, something, anything. I still have a little bit of hope that they might add something cool to that morph next week, because that's it. After next week, we don't have any more updates. So Zenimax, if you're listening, hey, you missed something. Let's get on that. Anyways, we move down to itemization and item sets, and this is where I am not happy. I am not happy with these changes. But we did get some fixes to sets like Dune Ripper, Frozen Watcher, Grave Guardian, Hispark. Those are all block sets. So apparently those were not doing too well with the new block changes, and hopefully those are fixed. And then of course we come to some of the new sets. So the Aegis Collar reduced the duration of this set to 11 seconds down from 12, increased the cooldown to 12 seconds up from 10 seconds, and reduced the damage per tick by a little bit over 1,000 per tick there. So if you caught my first patch note discussion on week 1, this is a new medium armor set. It looks very strong. In fact, most of us did think this would get nerfed, and hey, it did. That's pretty expected, I think. In the developer comments, they said the original values in the first PTS patch were residual testing numbers, basically meaning, oops, it wasn't supposed to be that strong. Sorry about that. Whatever. I mean, yeah, it was pretty good, so it does make sense that it would get reduced a little bit. Dune Ripper scales, they buff that quite a bit, actually. 5310 armor is pretty good. Then Elfbane did get a fix. It will work now more properly with Wall of Elements, so that's good. But then here we come up to Iceheart, and you might be wondering, well, Iceheart, that's not a new set. That didn't get changed. What's going on? What are they thinking? Well, there's an interesting story behind this, but let's see what they did here. So first of all, reduced, not buffed, reduced the damage shield this set provides down to 6050 from 8600. That's over 25% nerf just on this damage shield. They reduced the damage per tick down to 500, and they increased the cooldown to 12 seconds, up from 6 seconds. Now, obviously, I'm not happy with this at all. This is one of the staple sets for soloing in the Elder Scrolls Online. Basically, you have a very reliable damage shield that helps keep your character alive in, challenging situations. So overall, I don't agree with this. Now let's see what the comment is. Iceheart has long been a powerful defensive set that has become a staple for situations where you want to sacrifice damage for survivability. Yep, that's very true. While we love the idea of this set for helping in those contexts, the value of the defensive and offensive potential this set was leagues beyond our standards, comparing it to other sets like Brands of the Imperium or Phoenix. There's so much wrong with that statement that I don't even know where to start. First of all, you can't compare defensive and offensive potential because it's only a defensive set. There is no offensive potential other than very small ice damage. It is a defensive set. That was the whole point of the set. And I think it's hilarious to come up with this idea that, oh, hey, by the way, that set that's been in the game for years, we just noticed that it's a little bit too powerful, so we're going to nerf it. No. This seems very sketchy to me. Very sketchy. And I'll tell you why. It's because in this DLC release that's coming up, there's another monster set, which is a damage shield set. And on the forums, many of us posted, including myself, hey, this set is not very good. It had like 3,000. Let's go over the stats. Reduce the duration of the cooldown to 6 seconds. Increase the damage shield value to 5,000, up from 3,000. It now restores 600 magicka. Fine, whatever. The problem with this set was the value of the damage shield was too low. 3,000 damage shield is nothing. Also, the cooldown was too long. 10 seconds is way too long for a damage shield cooldown to be even remotely useful. And so many of us made a very obvious point that anybody familiar with item sets in this game would make is, hey, why would I run this set when I can just run Iceheart? It has a better cooldown, has a better damage shield, does a little bit of damage. It's much better than this. Let's change this set, maybe make it like a group damage shield, add some extra damage to it. We had lots of ideas about how to improve this set, but what did they decide to do? Improve this set? Not really. What they did instead was they nerfed this very nice monster set to the ground. It's not that good anymore. So in terms of the damage shield size, this is not terrible. I mean, I could have made that work. 6,000, it's not a huge difference. You factor in champion points, other means of damage shield on your build, and that's still not bad. That's workable. Reduce the damage. Like I said, I don't care about the damage. If the problem is the damage, just take the damage off. It's not why people use this set. The real killer, though, on this nerf, and it is a nerf, is increase the cooldown from 6 seconds to 12 seconds. That means you have a damage shield, a very small damage shield for 6 seconds, and then a 6-second break where you can do nothing. Your shield is gone and it cannot come back for any reason. When they do this, and they've done this before, by the way, if you remember a set called Pirate Skeleton, it used to give major protection with a decent uptime. That uptime was cut very, very low, and now I don't use that set anymore. I don't know anybody who does use that set. It is now in the garbage can, and they just did the same thing here to my favorite set in the game. This cooldown is not going to work. Not going to work. That needs to change. Like I said, I'm okay with a shield nerf in terms of the size. Take all the damage off, doesn't matter. But it needs to have 6 seconds of duration. Otherwise, it's not a defensive set. It's just a random proc chance that you can't rely on. The point of a defensive set is you should be able to rely on it to keep you alive, not to hope it comes in at a certain time when you need it to keep you alive, but maybe you won't and you'll die anyways. What's the point in wearing that set? Also, and I know this is getting into rant territory, but I think it needs to be said, this CNET set has proc conditions. The way this set works is you have to be channeling an ability. So it's not like, hey, anybody can use this new set. You have to be channeling either a heavy attack with a lightning staff, or you basically have to be a Templar using sweeps or maybe Radiant Glory or something like that that has a channel time. Those are literally the only 2 builds that will be able to use this set. If you liked, like myself, using damage shield sets on stamina builds, that is going to get much more difficult to do because I don't have channeled effects on two-handed, to make use of this. Also, can I just say this timing looks very sleazy. It looks bad because what you're doing is you're nerfing a base game set to make your DLC set look better. In other words, maybe sell a few more DLCs because the base game set isn't as good as the DLC set anymore. I think more than anything, that just disappoints me. I don't know if I thought the developers were better than that or not. It feels like a cheap tactic to sell a new zone, and I don't know if I'm going to buy the zone at this point because I don't like them doing that. Anyways, we've got more changes here. Kajalner's Nightmare did get a fix in terms of landing the stun and the damage. That's fine. Unchained Aggressor, this was the major Berserk set that many of us were looking at as well. They did reduce the duration down to 6 seconds, down from 9. I think that's reasonable. 6 seconds of major Berserk sounds a lot more reasonable than 9 seconds. They also reduced the cooldown though, so you'll get the proc up faster. And then Vicosa, this is another one of those cases, you guys, where it feels like they're nerfing old sets to make new sets better. Initially, the set did Major Maim, and that was the same buff that one of the new sets got in the new HARROWSTORM DLC. And so, of course, they would go back to this set and nerf it where it no longer gives Major Maim. It now did a reduced weapon and spell damage, which was pretty laughable. 268 weapon and spell damage is like no difference at all. But now they changed it to go up to 20% reduced weapon and spell damage. So 20% sounds a lot better than 268. That will need some testing, of course, to see how impactful it is. But I do like that change a little bit better. But, you know, overall, I am extremely disappointed in the developers on this one. Usually I try to stay positive with these guys. I appreciate the work that they do. But this time, I just don't know. You know, number one, there's no more updates for the Necromancer class. So they kind of left that Blastbones skill, especially the Magicamorph, they left it hanging. I don't know if they're going to fix it next week. I hope they do. But this whole thing with Iceheart, man, this really burns. I do not like it. So my advice for the developers would be consider your players first. A lot of people, especially people who enjoy soloing in the game, like this set. They put in the time for it. It's really not a PvP set. It's not affecting class balance in any way. If somebody wants to be able to solo a dungeon or have a slightly easier VMA run because they choose to run this set instead of like an offensive Monster Helm, then they should be able to do that. Why not? I don't see how it's hurting anybody other than the few niche builds that were depending on that. So overall, pretty disappointed. If I were to adjust it myself, it's really the cooldown that's going to kill it. Like I said, just with Pirate Skeleton, my Pirate Skeleton is in the trash. I never use that set anymore. It's because the cooldown makes it useless. I would prefer it to still be 6 seconds with obviously the reduced damage shield size. That's fine. Or if they feel like they don't want the 100% uptime, then I would just change it to 8 seconds. So up for 6 seconds with an 8-second cooldown, I would still be able to work with that. But otherwise, it's going to be a lot harder to justify using this set in the future. But anyways, that's it for me. If you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to crush that like button. Really does help. Let me know what you think of these changes in the comments below. Do you think the Iceheart change is a good, well thought out change? Or is it just a quick knee-jerk reaction, maybe in order to push players to buy a new DLC? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments section. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you around in the next video.